Hey, welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave, the producer. And Dave, let me tell you something. How many companies out there, how many drivers right now are raising their hands saying, somebody raised my fuel limit up on my card? Yeah. Listen, trucking companies, if you haven't done it yet, it's time to go back and review those limits on the fuel cards, because when fuel goes up $1.10 a gallon, Dave, it does some amazing things.
You join what we call the 900 club, the 1,000 club, and the 1,100 club when you start dropping that, and you see that it goes so fast it's a blur when you squeeze the handle. It's hard to even comprehend as you squeeze it. It's just spinning so fast.
It's absolutely insane, the insanity around the fuel right now. And again, think about it from a driving company. So, hey, trucking companies, listen to me for a second. When you have limits of, say, $1,000, right? $1,000 a day, which typically is okay.
Right.
All right. At 300 gallons, though, at $1 a gallon increase, well, you just add another $300. And all of a sudden, now, your night dispatch, your day dispatch is going to get inundated with phone calls because, let's face it, what used to cost $1,000 is now $1,300.
Yep. Or more. I mean, or more. I mean, you're looking at some of the. So, welcome to the new club, guys. Welcome to the new club members. You got some 1,200 club members coming out today. Yeah. Going to be popping those numbers in there. I think it's been a long time since I've seen the fuel prices this high.
You know what? When's the last time you've seen it?
What was it, in the 90s? It was just...
this is out of control. But yeah. I do want us to go back, and let's just look at a couple of things. Well, I want you to look at the volume first, right? We're going to look at the volume that's going on. And Dave and everybody, hey, we still see volume pretty daggum heavy at 14,580. It's still good volume. Now, again, let's just go back and let's go back and compare it to the previous years. And when we go back and we look at the previous years, we see the other years, right, at 11,000, 9,800. It's that magic 10,000 mark that we're used to seeing. Last year, we were at 15,715 during this period. Just, a good increase over where we are so far this year. So when we kind of do the look forward look, right, this is the blue is where we are right here. You can see where we are, just a little bit under where we were last year, but again, significantly higher than we were before. Again, it's just telling us that, I know we're in a war period right now across, over in Europe, but freight's still kind of moving right now. It's still doing what it can. Dave, this is the interesting part right here. I want us to look right here. And what I want you to look at is the rejection rate over the course of a year. This is looking at it from last year to current. Rejections clear up here at 25%, 28%. Today at 17.74%. So there's a lot of volume, but rejections are down significantly. And what that tells you is that the trucking companies, the trucking market, is keeping more of that freight in-house. It's kind of the new norm. It took us about a year and a half to figure it out, but we really do know how to handle this amount of volume. We're only rejecting 17.6. It's still very high, right? We know it's significantly higher than it has been in the years past. And heck, let's just take a look at it. Let's just go back to last year. Let's see what it shows me here. Last year we came in at 22.45% during this time. But Dave, as we continue to go down, last year we went way up, right? That's in the orange. What's important to understand, and throughout all of this volume right now, is the pricing, the spot market pricing. And Dave, you and I spoke about it last week, just the difference on dollars from this year to last year. Okay, so what we have seen is a 7% decrease in pricing on the spot market side. And 7% decrease I'm talking from January, okay? From the January peak, 7% decrease. That is 26 cents a mile. Less than what you were making back in January, right? Just a couple months ago. And Dave, I want you to look at this. This right here is the fuel price. Okay, so if we go back and we look at, well, what was fuel like? Well, back when you were at 26 cents a higher on the spot market freight, you owner-operators, you're also paying $3.58. Dave, it's $4.89 today. That's $4.89 today. We're talking between the pricing and the fuel increase, you're talking about 45 cents a mile different right now than you were a month, 2 months ago, is what you're making because of the price of fuel. The pricing on the spot market is down, and you owner-operators that go out there and get your freight, you're all in. You're not getting fuel surcharge. That's just your all-in rate. You're down 26 cents. You're down another, 16, 17, 18 cents a mile on the fuel alone. Dave, that's nearing 45 cents a mile. And for the independent contractor that's getting 3,000 miles a week, it's almost $1,500 less cash a week to pay your bills. And we warned Drive Safe, come on in here, Drive Safe. We talked last week, the difference in pricing is that when you go out there and you overspend on that tractor, and listen, many of you have done that. Many of you continue to do that on that used market. It's just it's what the pricing. Understand the larger companies are starting to keep some of them trucks. There's not as many to replace. They're selling all their old junk out there to the owner-operators who are way overpaying on that used market.
Right.
The same price is $1,500, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a week less cash than you were making. I mean, Dave, that's significant money. That's a big dip. That will hurt a pocket.
And if you've budgeted, if you've went off of the last few months and you've budgeted what you're going to be making, what you're going to be spending, you're way under now, and it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt in big ways. And again, it doesn't mean the rates aren't strong. They are strong, but with the fuel going up and the spot market rates go down, and I'm telling you that you out there, you don't have a lot to do with that. That whole entire spot market is really driven off the trucking companies on what they will accept and will not accept. And the market's saying, guys, they're accepting more and more freight every week.
And they're getting it.
And the more freight they get, the lower your rate's going to get. And listen, as long as fuel keeps going up, watch out.
Yep.
Watch out. Just be careful. Again, we said it's not the time to grow your fleet. If you did it last year, you're probably going to be okay, but you're buying tractors and trailers right now on the very high end. And it's not the high end on pricing. As a matter of fact, net cash to you, you're already down 45, 46 cents from January the 15th.
Correct.
Already. And Dave, again, let's just, it's our job to talk to the owner-operators, to talk to, and the owner-operators we speak of are really those that are out there running on their own authority.
Correct.
Right? Those are the ones we're speaking with because you're the ones that go out there, book your freight. You got all these spot markets. You do. Watch out, folks. This is going to affect your cash. And again, if you paid $40,000 more for that tractor than you should have, or than what it cost a couple years ago,
correct.
Be careful. Watch your expenses. Know where you are. Hey, Drive Safe, I know we have an interview coming up. Hey, talk to everybody a little bit about what the interview's about.
Yeah, let me tell you, I had an opportunity, and this interview is a great interview. It's a personal story. It's a personal mission, and I'm telling you, it's something that we all need to listen to and think about when we talk about distracted driving. So let's hear it. Let's go forward, and let's listen to Shelly today. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to BCB Live. It's Drive Safe Dave here. I have a very special guest today, Shelly. She is here as a motivational keynote safety speaker. She is here. Hey, Shelly, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited that you're here. I had an opportunity to speak with you previously to this, and because of that, we're going to dive right in and get to who you are, what it is you do.
Fabulous. Well, I am a keynote safety speaker, and I speak on one topic alone, which is a very, very important topic, and that's distracted driving. And more specifically, even within that genre, any type of electronic distracted driving.
All right, and I think really what we want to jump right into, Shelly, is why you and why this. Why don't you tell us your story?
You bet. Most people don't ever think later in life that they'd be in front of people talking. It's not one of those things that you go, yeah, I aspire to do this when you're a kid, right? I was in the same boat. In fact, I was scared to death to get up in front of the class and have to do a report. And here I am all these years later as an adult, and that is my profession. That's what my passion is about. So I kind of like to tell people that out of the gate, it isn't something I kind of chose. It sort of came to me through life circumstance. I'm a mother of three. I have three beautiful girls. Jessica's my oldest, my middle daughter, Erica, and my youngest, Valerie Grace. And, they are, as any mom listening or parent listening knows, that when you have kids, it's a full-time job. And they obviously are my priority, and my husband, of course, and I'm a homemaker. And we had a situation happen in our lives back in 2008. So I'm going to take you back on a little bit of a story here that happened to my family and what brought me into becoming a motivational speaker. The day was November 25th, 2008, and my oldest, Jessica, was 12. My middle daughter, Erica, was 9 at the time, and my youngest, Valerie, was 3.5. And I'm going to be talking to you about the day, that day where my middle daughter was. Her name is Erica, and she had just started school a couple months prior here in Colorado, where I live. I live in a city called Fort Collins. We have a big university here, Colorado State University, home of the CSU Rams. Anyway, I've lived here for 30 years now, but that's where I'm at. And Erica had just left that morning to head to school on that beautiful, cold November day, and she hopped on her bicycle and headed to school. We had an elementary school that was just built at the end of our neighborhood, about 4 blocks south of our home, called Coyote Ridge Elementary. And she had been enjoying her time there and was in 4th grade. She had just went to school and had a fantastic last day before Thanksgiving break. It was all turkey themed. They did all kinds of Thanksgiving focused events, and she had a great day, an absolutely fabulous day, and went to get on her bicycle and head home. And her friend Sophie saw her and stopped her and said, "Hey, Erica, how about we walk home together?" And she had her bike with her, so they walked home. And she got about halfway home when she finally told her friend Sophie, "Hey, Sophie, I'm going to ride the rest of the way home since I have my bike with me." And so she got on her bike to head home. Erica literally got within 15 pedals of my front door when my neighbor saw her from across the street, and he was walking his daughter home, and they lived about a block away from us on the next street up. And he saw her from across the street, and he's like, "Happy Thanksgiving, Erica." And he started to go down the hill towards his home when he heard a large crash happen behind him. His name was Kevin. Kevin and his daughter Kaylee turned around to see what had happened. And there he had seen my daughter had been struck by another vehicle. He immediately ran over to my home to alert my family to what had happened. At the time that all of this was transpiring, I have to explain where I am and what I was doing because it's pertinent to my story, to our story. I had been multitasking 2 months prior, as a lot of moms do. I was out on a run with my golden retriever and my youngest daughter, Valerie, in her umbrella stroller. And I was swerving as I was coming down the hill. I saw a rock on the sidewalk, and I had to swerve to get out of the way to not have it hit the stroller. Well, it did, and it jarred up the stroller, and down my daughter was flying towards the concrete. I managed to pull her up in the process, and she was not hurt, but I rolled my ankle and broke it in the process. So I had been wearing a walking boot for the last, the 2 months that followed that, and I was at the doctor's office on the day that all of this was happening. And I just gotten the good news from my doctor that, everything was good. I needed to finish wearing the boot for another week or so and past the Thanksgiving holiday. And so I buckled my daughter into the backseat of our minivan and hopped in the car to head home. At the time in 2008, Bluetooth had just kind of come out and was really starting to gain a lot of popularity and attention. The automobile industry and the cell phone companies were really heavily promoting it. And we were like no different than anybody else. My husband and I both owned Bluetooth setups, and so I put mine on and proceeded to make some phone calls on my way home from my doctor's appointment to share my good news with my family that I was all healed up. And I guess you could say I'm kind of an impatient person, so that's why I didn't wait till I got home. And in the process of my 15 to 20 minute drive, I made 3 phone calls. What's interesting about this drive home is that I could not recall my drive at all to you. If you were to ask me what the road conditions were like, what the weather was, what speed I was going, really, truly, to be able to recount the drive, I wouldn't have been able to, because I was focused on the conversations I was having and not focused on the task of driving. When I finally made it home into my neighborhood and pulled in the back entrance to my neighborhood, I thought to myself, it dawned on me as I was finishing a phone call with the last call with my father. And it dawned on me that I was like, how did I get in here today? Why did I come in this back way? That makes no sense. That's a longer route home. Nobody does that. I mean, you take the quickest route home, right? I had 3 entrances into my home and 2 which are much faster. And I ended up taking the back road because I was so concentrated on those calls. I really wasn't even aware of what road I was driving on coming home from my doctor's appointment. As I was finishing my phone call and had this epiphany about how did I get here? How did I manage to get home today? I saw at the end of my street, I live in a neighborhood, the street I live on is a through street. I could see at the very end of my neighborhood that my neighbor was looking for me on the sidewalk, like looking for my car, and was waving me up. So as I got closer to the end, to my home, here I could see fire trucks and ambulances and policemen and my neighbor trying to get my attention. So I pulled up and parked and got out of my minivan. My daughter had fallen asleep in the back. And there was the principal of the elementary school, my husband, Kevin, a whole group of kids, neighbors were there, policemen, paramedics. It was chaotic. I had no clue what was going on, why I was the one being asked and rushed to the middle of all of this chaos. As I got closer, I saw a woman out on the sidewalk, and she shouted out to me, "I can't believe I didn't see her." And of course, I didn't know what she was talking about. As I got closer, I saw my daughter's bike, and eventually I finally got to where she was as the crowd cleared, and I could see paramedics were cutting her clothes off, and they don't waste their time. They have these big scissors, and they just cut from the bottom up, and they were cutting all her clothes off so they could see what was going on. She was lying completely still. And again, this woman shouts out to me on the sidewalk, "I can't believe I didn't see her." I was assessing the situation in my head, and I thought to myself, all right, this woman must have hit my daughter. I'm going to go over and calm her down and tell her it's going to be okay. I'm sure Erica's just unconscious. She's probably got a broken arm. 3 times this woman shouted out to me, 3 times. And I kept going over to her. I went over to her twice, and I consoled her, and I said, "I'm sure she's going to be okay. She'll be fine. She's going to be fine." And unbeknownst to me, that was the beginning of 2 days of what no parent should ever have to go through. We were sent to a local hospital about 15 minutes away. My husband was asked to stay behind to fill out accident report, and I went in one ambulance and my daughter in another. And when I got to the hospital, of course I was looking for her, and they said, "She's with the doctors right now. I'm sorry, you can't see her." So I was kept behind in a room for 45 minutes by myself with no updates, nobody telling me what was going on, as I was frantically calling family to tell them that my daughter had been hit. And I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know how she was. Finally, I'd had enough. I got out of that room, and I ran to the other end of the hospital where I believed she was, and found the room that she was in. And the nurses said, "I'm sorry, you can't go in right now." And I was like, "My daughter's in there, and I need to see her, and I've got to know how she is." When I came in, I was astonished to see there were not 1 or 2 doctors in the room, but there were 6 doctors. 6 doctors who were rushing around and trying to help my little 9-year-old daughter who just laid completely motionless. They said, "Are you her mom?" And I said, "I am. I need to know how she is." And they said, "Mrs. Forney, your daughter's fighting for her life right now. We need to fight for life for the Children's Hospital in Denver at this very moment." And I said, "All right, I want to come with her." And they said, "I'm sorry, there's no room in the helicopter, only for the paramedics and for her." At that moment, my husband had shown up. A neighbor drove him to meet me at the hospital. I went over to my daughter, who this entire time had laid completely motionless from the moment she was struck. And I said, "Sweetie, Mama's here. Mama's here. You're going to be okay." She moved. She was shuffling around and she didn't open her eyes, but she moved. And they said, "Oh, that's just her muscles moving. That she really can't hear you." And I said, "No, she can hear me. She knows her mama's here." They took our daughter and put her in the helicopter. And we got in the car and our neighbor drove us to Children's Hospital down in Denver. It was an 1.5-hour drive as we called family and continued to update them on her situation. When we got down to the hospital in Denver, and we were brought to my daughter's room, we found her with what they call a shunt, and it was in her head. It was screwed into her head like a bolt to relieve the pressure from the impact of this 100% preventable car crash. As we had no idea the details of what had happened, but this is what we learned had happened to my daughter. Kevin, our friend who was walking his daughter home that day, was the last person to speak to her. As he turned to go down the hill, and Erica was literally 15 pedals on her bicycle from my front door. That's all she had to do was turn the corner. She was in the bike lane heading towards traffic. When you're a bicyclist, you have the right to go in either direction as long as you're in that bike lane. That's what it's there for you. For any bicyclist, somebody on the rollerblades, roller skaters, that's what that bike lane's for. It's for them. And so she was not at fault. She didn't do anything wrong. She was in the bike lane. A neighbor we didn't know, who lived in our neighborhood just a couple blocks south of our home. She was also not a young person. I need to note that because I don't want there to be this impression that it was a young driver. She was 36 years old. She was a mom of a 1 and 2-year-old boy and girl, a full-time physical therapist, and on her way home from work, I would assume. I never did get that kind of information. But as she was entering our neighborhood, she was not speeding. She wasn't a bad driver. She was going the posted speed limit of 25 when she felt a sudden thud hit her vehicle. The reason that she had no idea that she had struck my daughter was because her eyes were downcast. She was looking over in her passenger seat for something. So she had a foot on the pedal, pushing the gas, and a hand on the wheel. But when your eyes are not looking forward, who's driving your vehicle? Nobody is, in essence. She drifted off the main road that my daughter was on, about 8 feet into the bike lane when she hit my daughter straight on. Erica's little body hit that windshield of her Ford Expedition SUV, which is about a 8,000-pound vehicle. It hit her with that force going 25 miles an hour against my daughter, who's only 90 pounds, going 25 miles an hour. So if you do the math, you take an 8,000-pound vehicle going 25 miles an hour, and you impact that against a 90-pound child, what do you think the chances are that she's going to survive something like that? As her body hit the windshield, it cracked it clear across. The whole windshield was cracked. She did a 360 flip backwards in the air, and she landed 15 feet the other direction before she finally hit the concrete. When Erica hit the ground, she broke her brainstem. So she was completely unconscious from the moment she hit the ground. She never did regain consciousness. When we met her at the hospital in Denver, when they Light for Life to the hospital in Denver, and we found her in the room. The doctors told us that shunt was to relieve the pressure from the impact that I just explained to you that her little body and her little head sustained. The pressure in your head cannot grow to more than a number of 13, I was told by paramedics and doctors, before blood and oxygen could no longer get to your brain to keep you alive. The shunt that they put in her head was to relieve the impact and the pressure that she had sustained. 24 hours after she arrived there, the pressure in her head was never even close to that number. The pressure in her head was 130. 130. Her brain was trying to squeeze out of her head. There was nothing that could be done for her. On Thanksgiving Day, we had to do a brain dead test, see if there was anything left, if there was any signs of life. Even though she had very little internal damage, it was mostly brain damage. And she died on Thanksgiving Day from a brain injury that was 100% preventable. There was one and one only cause that we lost our daughter on that day. It was a phone call at 3:38 on November 25th that forever impacted and changed my family's lives. Losing my daughter was the kind of experience I never, ever imagined. You know, when you hear statistics and you go, well, that'll never be me. That'll never be my family. Here I am. I'm one of those statistics. My family is a statistic. My daughter became a statistic from something that should have never, ever happened to her. She did nothing wrong. She was literally 15 petals from the whole rest of her beautiful life that was waiting for her. Having gone through this kind of experience propelled us into media attention, and we had people approaching us for an interview and wanting to know what happened to our daughter. And we decided as a family that our story needed to be shared. And that's what started our entire journey into this world of distracted driving and speaking, and what drives me to want to share our story, as hard as it is for me to tell it over and over and over again. I share our story sometimes upwards of 100 times a year. And as you can see, I don't hold back. I tell it as it happened because I want to be real with people. I want them to know that this kind of scenario is happening every single day. We're not supposed to lose our loved ones. And on top of that, we really are not supposed to lose our children. We're supposed to be the ones that go first. And my daughter's life was taken at 9 years and 3 months, exactly to the day. On the day that we all celebrate everything we're grateful for. Thanksgiving Day is the day that we had to let her go, and then we had to say goodbye to her. I don't hold back when I tell our story because I want people to be moved. I want them to connect with me. I want them to realize that if they don't change their driving habits, that they could be in my very seat, or the seat of what it's like to be the driver who hit and killed someone else's loved one, best friend or child. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm here today.
I feel like that's a incredibly moving story, and I know it, and I know that you didn't want to this mission that you got, this mission that you have, this story that I know you didn't want any of it, but I'll tell you, it is a story that needs to be told and told again. And I appreciate you coming on and letting us know. Do me a favor, tell us a little bit about what after that you actually got. Because of this and because of your media, you actually got involved in helping to change the laws there in Colorado. Am I correct?
Yes, definitely. So the very first thing that happened, literally within a couple of days, we had some candlelight visuals. We had, I think we had media at our house before we even had our funeral. It was that quick. And that was a tough decision. But, I literally sat down with my family and I was like, do we let the world into our loss? And if we do, where are we doing this? And we all agreed, all four of us agreed that we needed to share what happened to our daughter because laws need to be put in place. There needs to be changes that needed to happen. And we had no law in the state of Colorado at that time. It's sad to me to say that we have a very weak law, and there's been many attempts since I started, as well as many other victims and victim advocates, victim survivors. I'm one of many that goes and testifies down at the Capitol in Denver to try to get a stronger law put in place. But back in 2008, we didn't have any. So by 2009, I do believe that's when, I'd have to look it back up, it's been too long. But it was either 2009 or 2010 when we did get a law passed. But it took many trips down to the Capitol of testifying as it moved through the various committees till it finally made it to the House floor and was passed. That is how my journey definitely began, kind of through media, and then media heard our story and shared our story with, it was on all sorts of channels down here. And then the politicians saw that we were, I was actively, testifying and trying to make an impact. And they're like, you've got to be involved with us. So that really kind of was the beginning, definitely.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's great to know that your passion and your desire to make change happens. I'll tell you, as I listen to your story, I'll tell you what shocked me the most, more than the tragedy, was your honesty about being on the phone as well the very same day, knowing full well that ultimately we've all truly been guilty of doing the very same thing, and knowing that tragedy is just a moment away. If we don't listen to what truly can happen, we could be the woman crying out 3 times on the street, right? We could be that person saying, I didn't see her. And I, it was an ironic way that you told that you were honest with us, that you were just as guilty the same day, doing the same things, but the tragedy struck you, not the other way around. And I'll tell you what, let's be honest, this shatters everybody's life, right? I mean, even the person, the lady on the lady, it shatters hers as well, I'm sure, knowing full well what she's done in going forward. But I'll tell you, I think that's poignant, because I think really this is about education, right? Not about a law, not about punishment, not about what we can do in the Capitol building, but what we can do here in educating others on how important it is that we change, right? Because I'm guilty, just like everyone else has, of taking that call and being distracted, of having received a text message. I'll tell you, I'm way better than I was ever before, but I'm going to admit I'm guilty. I'm absolutely guilty of being on the phone when I shouldn't be, or looking down when I shouldn't have. We joke about it with some friends of ours. We're all 100% better. There was a time when we were scared to ride with each other in the car because we would all be reading emails, right, and driving and doing it. But I'll tell you, I'm encouraged by the fact that you're being honest with us, that we all need to change the way we do things, right? This is all about knowledge and training.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that, first and foremost, the reason that I do share that, and I, for a long time, I didn't see that it could be relevant or helpful as part of my presentation. And then I realized after 3 or 4 years of speaking and sharing our story, you know what? I was no different. And I fell to the same I fell into the same category, so did my husband, as people who believed what society said. And society said in 2008, hey, we got this cool new thing you can do where you keep your hands on the wheel, but you can listen and talk to people through a Bluetooth conversation. And I thought, well, that's smart. Why not? Yeah, I'm going to try that. And so I did it, and I did it regularly. And I share that because these kind of incidents and crashes that happen to people are good drivers. Doesn't mean that people are bad drivers. It's happening. These crashes are happening to good intended people and good drivers. And it could have been me, and it just so happened that it wasn't me that caused the crash that day. You know, my Bluetooth has been dead for 13 years, 13 and a half years. It has sat in my drawer, and I have never used it since. I can't, I won't. I never will again while I drive, or text while I drive, because it takes 3 seconds, 3 seconds of distraction. That's it for you to travel the length of an entire football field. 3.2 seconds, I believe, is the average text. And if you're going 55 miles an hour down a road, you will have traveled the length of an entire football field. Would you do that with your eyes shut? Of course you wouldn't. But when you're texting, in essence, that is what you're doing. So that's one of the many facts and statistics that I share in my presentations. I guess we haven't even kind of gotten into that part yet of this, but it is important that I share where I was and what I was doing, because I was no different than anybody else.
If and you know, it is something that we must listen to, because it is a danger that each of us have the potential to do every day. Whether and you don't have to be a young driver, you can be an experienced driver. All of it affects us equally, right? Under the way it works out there on the road, we can't genuinely do that. And I will tell you, Shelley, as a professional driver for years, you know, the hardest thing for a professional driver, will tell you, it's not anything other than being focused 100% of the time for the length of time that you're on the road. You know, behind the wheel. That is the hardest part about being a truck driver, is that 100% focus for 11 hours a day. You do that in your desk, at your office. You do that any other place. You know, you lose focus. Nothing happens. There, tragedy can occur, especially with an 80,000-pound vehicle. And yeah, I mean, you're talking about a whole different ball game. And everybody that we have here in our audience knows full well, especially the amount of time and experience they have on the road. They've seen enough tragedy being out there for the length of time. I guess my question to you is, if they want to reach you or get a hold of you or talk to you, what are some of the best ways with your organization, or just you, or how are some of the best ways to reach out to you and to get a hold of you, or even have you speak?
Yeah, you bet. So if you'll indulge me, can I tell you a little bit about my presentation and what it is I do?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Great. So I ended up joining, I'm just going to kind of move on from the whole, kind of where we left off with the whole political aspect and the laws. So I did dive into all that. I joined and helped form a nonprofit called Focus Driven Advocates for Cell Phone Free Driving. And it no longer is now in existence, but we were around for about 4 years. And that's what propelled me truly to actually start sharing my story. I started off simply sharing along with other victims. All of us came together to share our stories in a hope that it would move people enough to see that this is a very serious problem and this is what's happening to real life people, right? We're not statistics, we're real life people with real live loss that we're living with because of 100% preventable cause of distracted driving. That being part of Focus Driven was the launching point for me into my speaking career. And once Focus Driven, unfortunately, wasn't able to sustain anymore, a lot of people ended up getting regular jobs and stopped speaking. I made it my passion, my mission to share my daughter's story along with many other people's children's stories that I came to know very well through Focus Driven. And that kind of became my focal point and still is. This is my 12th year of speaking. So I've been doing this for a long time now. I am an independent speaker, so I don't have a funding source. So when I come to speak for people, I do. Obviously, I ask for them to pay me for my time to be there and travel, which I try to be quite affordable. And there aren't that many people who do what I do in the United States and abroad. For all I know, it's not an easy thing to do. To get up in front of a group of people and be able to share something that has dramatically changed your life with the mission and goal to deliver a message that will not only leave an impact, but leave a changed perception of the message I'm trying to give them. And that is, this is more about learning the do's and don'ts and what's safe and what's not safe to do on the road. Educating people that the number one cause of the number one cause of automobile crashes in the United States today is distracted driving. That is what is taking out 2 out of every 4 car crashes is because somebody is distracted. Most of the time, it's an electronic distraction, be it an iPad, be it a cell phone, a Bluetooth, or a text. And if it's not that, it's other factors in the car. Obviously, there are other things that cause distraction. People, that is a huge distraction, having a passenger, as well as eating, drinking, those types of things, music. But that's not the thing I focus on. I focus on educating people about electronic distraction. So I have a full-on presentation I give. I was trained through the National Safety Council. I use a lot of their data and share a lot of their data. They're an amazing organization that has always been very supportive of people like me and was who kind of helped launch and get Focus Driven off the ground. So I have a soft spot for the National Safety Council. So a lot of my data is from them as well as other reputable sources. So I try to share information that's up to date. I have talking points that are specific to which state I'm speaking in. I'll gear my data towards my audience more specifically. If it's truck drivers, school bus drivers, I talk for so many different types of groups and organizations. It's really kind of a wide range of audience that I have, but high schoolers, college students, church organizations, oh my gosh, it just goes on and on. But I would say a big bulk of my clients are definitely in the trucking industry. And so I've done a lot of keynotes for conferences and things like that. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I'm quite a social butterfly, although I don't do Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. I myself am not a real tech person. My whole family is, my husband is, my kids are. It's not my specialty for sure, but my PowerPoint is full of variety. I try very hard to connect with my audience, to engage my audience. I ask them questions. I want them involved. So out of the gate, I will be asking them questions so that it becomes their presentation. The more you include your audience, the more apt they are to retain what it is that you're sharing with them. I dive into the science of what's actually happening to your brain when you are trying to have a Bluetooth conversation or a text while driving. I know there's a lot of trucking companies that do support Bluetooth and feel obviously it's a safer option. So I don't encourage it. I definitely discourage it, but I back my beliefs with data and with statistics that are real and true, that you can look them up and see that what I'm sharing is not mine. It's what's out there. It's what's been studied and it's what's been proven to be real and true. And it is enough that it truly does convince people to change their driving habits. That is my end goal. My end goal when I come to speak for somebody is not to share a sad story, even though I do. And I'm very truthful and honest about what happened, just like I shared with you today. I do go into a bit more depth in my actual presentation than I have for your show today. A little bit more about my daughter and about the driver and about us and my family. I I open up a little bit more about some of that if there's enough time to. But my end goal is to move people to change their driving habits in the end and go, you know what? I do not want to be in her shoes, right? I don't want to be somebody who's lost a loved one because of something like this. And I don't want to be the one who's caused another person to lose a loved one or drastically change someone's life because of my choices and decisions behind the wheel. You know, I have a 16-year-old daughter right now. She's about to get her driver's license. She's a little behind, and took her time during COVID taking her driver's ed. So we are really close to her getting her license. And we were talking today. I was taking her to school, and she's been driving back and forth to school. And of course, she's grown up with this because she was 3.5 when her older sister Erica was taken from us. And so she's grown up in this whole distracted driving world because this is my 12th year of doing this. So since she was tiny, I have been speaking and sharing our story and educating people. So she knows it inside and out. And of course, you know, I know I have no doubt in my mind that she's going to be an advocate herself for this. But I cannot lose any more kids. I tell you, it's scary out there on the roadways today. And in my town where I live, it just feels like it's getting worse and worse. You can really tell if somebody is distracted driving in front of you because they're either going too fast, too slow, or they can't stay on the road. They're drifting off into the right lane most of the time. Everywhere I go and everywhere I travel, I see this, and it's heartbreaking to me that people they're oblivious of their surroundings. One thing I've been telling Valerie is, you know, driving is a privilege. You know, you have to take tests. You have to show you know the knowledge and the rules of the road. But once you get behind that wheel, it's not about you anymore. It's about everybody around you, because what you do and the choices you make impact the person in front of you, the person behind you, the person on either side of you on the roadway. What you do and how you drive will impact those people. So it is about us, but it really is about everybody around us as well. And I think that message has been lost, you know. Texting and driving has become an addiction. That whole desire to answer the phone while you're driving. We actually have I've done some research on this and spoken with some cognitive neuroscientists, one of which, his name is David Strayer. David Strayer had taught me that, you know, we actually have an endorphin release when we hear the chime of our phone because we're needed, we're wanted, someone's trying to reach us. Now, of course, some people will say, well, if it's my work, no, I don't really want to answer that call. But we actually have an endorphin release when we hear our phone chime, when we hear our phone ring, because that means somebody is, you know, wants to talk to us, wants to reach us, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Why can't we make a mental and physical choice and decision to change our thinking around this, right? To go, you know what? While I'm behind the wheel, as soon as I turn that key on and put my foot on the pedal, it's not about me anymore. It's about everybody else. And I need to make that personal choice and decision to say, you know what? Those calls can wait. Those texts can wait. And I go over at the end of my presentation of some suggestions and things people can do. I also ask people to sign a pledge. It's a personal commitment pledge saying, you know what? I take driving seriously. I am going to choose to be a cell phone free and text free driver. And it's something for them to do for themselves, to be accountable to themselves. I try to encourage companies that I speak for to make a stronger cell phone policy if they don't have one in place, and to be more diligent if they're not about reprimanding their staff and their employees if they are offenders and they've caused crashes to happen. A lot of places have a zero tolerance, and that's the way it should be, in my opinion. But those are things I try to discuss with companies ahead of time before I come. And I want to know if they're on the same page that I am, and if what I'm going to speak for them aligns with what their policies are, and are they upholding those policies with their staff. So I really try to go above and beyond and make sure that when I come and speak for somebody, they are going to leave with changed staff and changed attitudes when it comes to what they're going to do after that day. I've had people in my audience come up to me and say, you know what, I just called my wife, or I just called my husband, and we're going to take that pledge together. And we're not going to do this anymore because you're right. It is not worth the risk.
I'll tell you what, I would like for, if anybody has an opportunity or want to reach out to you, Shelley, do me a favor, give us your email address, or how can somebody contact you the best way, whether it be by email. I know I contacted you through LinkedIn, but if you would, how would you like to be contacted directly?
You bet. So there's many different ways people can reach me. I am on Facebook as Shelley Forney, Motivational Safety Speaker, as well as I'm on there just personal, and I don't mind if they reach me. That's just under my name, just Shelley Forney under Facebook. And they got to make sure they spell my name right. If they don't spell it with the EY, they won't find me. I'm also on LinkedIn, and it says the same thing, Shelley Forney, Motivational Safety Speaker. And I also have a website, which is my name. It's shelleyforney.com. Very simple to reach me. My phone number is, I'm happy to give that out. If people want to reach out to me, I will private message them my phone number. But all my information is out there. Also, literally Googling my name, you will see many, many videos pop up where I've shared our story over the years for various different TV shows, YouTube channels, you name it. There's plenty of opportunity and places where people can find me to contact me. And I would be so happy to talk to people about their next safety training event, their in-service training. Again, this is something that I will give 110% because that's what my audience deserves. You know, sometimes I'm speaking to a crowd of 1,000 people. Sometimes I'm speaking to a crowd of a couple of hundred. And even if I always hope for more, but if I only get one person to change their driving habits, then it's absolutely worth being there. To me, that's worth it, even if it's just for one person. But I always.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Thankful Thursday on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. You got Double Check Dale in front of it. What an interview. Oh, man, that's hard to watch all the way through. So just Thankful Thursday. I want to be thankful for all the drivers we have out there who take the distracted driving seriously and don't do it. And so that's what I'm thankful for today. Hey, the interview ran a little bit long, so we're just going to jump right into the weather because that is the hot topic this morning. We have a lot of stuff going on. We're going to start with some winds. You know, currently the winds look pretty decent for the most part. We're starting to see them build up a little bit out in the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, patch in Arizona. But as we kick this into this afternoon, later today, New Mexico and Arizona, we're starting to see some very, very strong winds, and then southern Nevada out into California. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. If you're in those areas, be aware of it. Find yourself a good weather station and stay attuned to them because some of these winds are very, very strong this afternoon out in New Mexico, Arizona, Las Vegas. Even the panhandles, Oklahoma, and a little bit into western Oklahoma is starting to see the winds increase this afternoon. You know, you get into the evening hours, 7 o'clock, and just a huge area of southern New Mexico and southern Arizona and that whole corner of Las Vegas or Nevada. Very, very strong winds there. And again, the winds are picking up in the panhandle, Lubbock area, Oklahoma City at 8 o'clock. We do see some reduction as we go into the overnight hours and into the morning hours. Excuse me. New Mexico and Arizona, the scope of them has died down, but there's still some very strong winds, probably right along the front ranges of the mountains. But Texas and Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, Lubbock, Oklahoma City, even in the early morning hours tomorrow are going to see some very strong winds. Around Lubbock, we could see gusts as high as, well, we'll see some strong gusts out there, so do be aware of that. As we go into tomorrow, a little bit later in the morning, and we'll see when we look at precipitation, we're going to see some come through this area of central Texas and the panhandle and Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma. Winds are still very strong out in there. You know, tomorrow morning forecast 37 mile an hour gust, probably around Abilene. So we'll have to keep an eye on those and be aware of them. You know, if the gusts get over 40 miles an hour, if you're empty or loaded lightly, you need to be pulled over. It's just not safe to be operating. If you're in an area of high wind with some strong gusts, slow it down. If we go into tomorrow afternoon, you know, Friday afternoon, high area of strong winds through all of southern Texas. All of Texas will be seeing some strong winds. Southern Texas will be seeing the brunt of them. Dallas will be seeing some strong winds, and those will go up into Arkansas and into Kentucky. Also seeing some pretty strong winds coming down up into Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska area are going to experience some strong winds, as is the Front Range of Colorado and that Elk Mountain area. So winds are part of the story going on right now. The other part is precipitation, what we have going on with precipitation. In Colorado, it's been picking up some snow. Right now, it doesn't look too bad in western or eastern Colorado, but almost all of Kansas, northern Kansas, southern Nebraska, southern Iowa, northern Missouri is currently picking up some precipitation in the form of snow. And as we kick that into this afternoon, Nebraska gets a little bit of a break. Most of Nebraska gets a little bit of a break, but Kansas, from the central part all the way east, and then northern Missouri is still picking up snow, and that snow has got all the way through southern Iowa and up into Illinois. So a lot of snow going on for the next 24 hours or so. As we go into the overnight, or at 6 o'clock this evening, we see the one band of snow starts to shift a little bit to the northeast. Central Missouri, southeastern Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Indiana picking up some snow. Still, southern Kansas is picking up, but as we go into the overnight hours, and we get to about 11 o'clock, those bands join back up, and so now we have snow all the way from southern Colorado, southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma now, central Missouri, central Illinois, northern Indiana. So very long band of snow. Nothing in this one looks real heavy, but with those winds that we were looking at, could create some treacherous travel. So we'll definitely keep an eye. You want to keep an eye on that. And then tomorrow morning, that whole band shifts a little bit south and a little bit east. And so by tomorrow morning, Oklahoma City, the panhandle of Texas, most of New Mexico will be getting snow, as again, central Missouri will still be getting it, central Illinois, northern Indiana, and it's shifted a little bit further south. We are seeing a little bit of freezing rain tomorrow morning on that Oklahoma-Arkansas line, so a little bit of freezing rain and mixed precipitation there. Also tomorrow morning, most of central Texas, the winds are starting to pick up. We're starting to see some showers in most of central Texas tomorrow morning. As we go into tomorrow afternoon, let's look at 2 o'clock. We're seeing wet snow all the way from Texas Panhandle down Lubbock, west of Lubbock, all the way up through Oklahoma City. Dallas will be right on the cusp of freezing rain and the snow. Oklahoma City will be getting snow, but that wet snow travels all the way up through Illinois, Indiana, northern Ohio. And then looking at, tomorrow evening, finally it starts to clear out of the Midwest and the central United States, but it has definitely shifted over to the east. And now southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, western Tennessee will be getting some very wet snow, as well as southern Indiana, Ohio, the Pennsylvania up into the New York area, with some very strong showers down in the Houston Gulf Coast area, most of Louisiana. Georgia and South Carolina tomorrow evening look to be picking up some precipitation also. So it looks like we have a very wet 24 to 48 hours. As we go to Saturday morning, now we look out, most of the precipitation is out on the East Coast or getting to the East Coast. The snow line is central Ohio, central Kentucky, central Tennessee, up north through Pennsylvania, New York. We'll be picking up snow in front of that. The Atlantic Coast area will be getting a lot of rain. So again, Friday and Saturday, tomorrow and Saturday, lots of precipitation going on in different places. By Saturday afternoon, the snow really shifts up into more to the north, but most of Pennsylvania, most of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut will be picking up snow tomorrow afternoon, but by tomorrow evening, I believe it moves pretty much offshore. So by Saturday evening, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, 1 a.m., most of the precipitation is offshore. So we will stay in tune with it and keep the updates going, because there is a lot of precipitation, winds, compromised roads. So be aware of where you're at. If the roads are compromised, make sure you get it slowed down and increase your following distance and space. With that, we're going to go to this week's safety topic. We've been talking about speeding, and today's thing is The effectiveness of safety equipment. You know, we watched that video about distracted driving, and there's, you know, safety equipment involved in there. But the faster you go, the less effective that safety equipment is. And so it's just another reason to watch your speed, to slow it down, keep those speeds down, give that safety equipment a better chance of doing its job and helping to protect you there. So, you know, again, speeding comes in many different forms, and it doesn't just mean going over the posted speed limit. Also means driving too fast for conditions. So slow it down. Don't drive distracted, because the faster you go, the faster you're going speeding. If you're distracted, the more distance you go, the less time you have to react and less time you have to get stopped. With that, let's roll it into some videos this morning. Let's see. Right here, we got that four-wheeler that is changing a bunch of lanes at once. You know, good job by the driver staying back. We're seeing traffic, you know, good space and following distance. Nice job by the driver in this one. But, you know, we see this so often. The four-wheelers or even big trucks too often come from, you know, the way left lane and cut across 2-3 lanes and get to the exit. So nice job of watching it, staying back, good following distance here. Right here, we're going to talk about, you know, that's some good following distance. We're on a double yellow right there. So just see what happens in this one. I think we're going to see a no, no, no. Even though that vehicle is pulling over to turn, we do not pass on a double yellow. We just never want to go out in that double yellow, because there's a reason those white yellow lines are there. Do not pass on them. We know this vehicle is pulling over. Just get some patience, slow down, let that vehicle get out of your way, continue in your lane. Do not pull over a double yellow. This one here, let's see what we got going on. Coming up to a red light, I'm going to guess, and you know, driver here does a great job of slowing down for the red light. A couple of four-wheelers, you know, the truck in this one gets slowed down for it, but if you watch ahead, a couple of these four-wheelers see that yellow light, think it's an opportunity to go, and one of them actually goes through, that white one actually goes through a red light. So intersections are dangerous. We say it all the time on here. Intersections are dangerous, and when we see actions like that, you know, the yellow light, and four-wheelers still choosing to go through it, very unsafe. Next video we have coming up is going to be, it's the same one, or we got a different one here. And again, it goes to that intersections are dangerous, and so we just have to be aware of it and have to be prepared to stop. Driver in this video does a great job, situational awareness, prepared for it. You know, stale green light comes to a stop, and again, we see a couple of four-wheelers go blasting through that. Right here, just a great job by the driver in this video. We have an accident scene, and so traffic is moving very slow, as it should be, giving those first responders a chance to do their job. But what I really like about this video is the patience and the courteousness of the driver in this one. The big truck letting that four-wheeler come over, you know, it's a pinch point, but he still slows down, lets that four-wheeler come over. Nice courteousness there, nice job. And again, it's same similar situation. You know, we got a merge point, lots of traffic coming on, stop and go from the looks of it. And the driver, again, just exhibits some great courteousness, even though, you know, the driver's trying to get on too soon on the merge point coming across a solid white. But driver in this video does a great job being courteous, letting that four-wheeler get over. So, hey, great job on that one, drivers. Everybody, I appreciate you tuning in. Oh, we got one more. Let's see what we got here. We've got, you know, if I look at that, just driver's got some great space, owning the space in front of them and letting traffic pull away from them, and understanding that, you know, we're always going to see traffic or four-wheelers come over and change multiple lanes at once. And so, you know, by going slow, especially along a lane that we know is exiting or is slowed down, you know, slow it down, because statistically, about 1 out of 5 is going to jump out of that lane and change their mind. And so, great job by the driver in this one, owning the space in front of them and keeping that space. Hey, everybody, thankful Thursday. Thank you for tuning in. You've been watching Double Check Dale on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.